Okay, so in the news at the moment we have the story about the fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral in France, and people are calling it a tragedy and, quite dramatic words like that. Now, I do understand it was an iconic building and it was one of France's most visited tourist attractions, really, even though it is a church and a Catholic church. It's a place of worship. But people are calling it a tragedy, and some guy said it's a tragedy for the whole world, which I think is really over the top. To me, it's not a tragedy. A tragedy is the Christchurch shooting. A tragedy is 9/11 and the terrorism. A tragedy is the wars in Syria in the last 7 years, resulting in hundreds of thousands of dead people, innocent people. A tragedy is the global arms trade, which are fueling all these wars in the Middle East and in Yemen and in Syria. A lot of people are profiting off the misery of other people because they're profiting from selling weapons to people, including the French government. So the French President Macron, he can stand there and say, this is terrible for France and all this, but okay, so on one level, yeah, it's a culturally significant building, but there are more important things going on in the world, and these entrepreneurs have pledged hundreds of thousands of euros or of pounds or whatever in money, hundreds of millions they've pledged to rebuild the Notre Dame Cathedral, which is, they can do what they want because it is their money, but I sometimes think you could use that money for things that really help people. You could build brand new hospitals with modern equipment, you could help people with cancer, you could do a lot with it. But of course, yeah, it's their choice to do what they want with it. I get that. But I just think sometimes the way people react to these things, like somebody saying that it was a tragedy for the world, it just isn't. Most people are busy in their everyday lives. I mean, there's 1 billion people in this world without clean drinking water. They're not thinking about this, oh God, how terrible, an old building set on fire. They're just not. It's not. Most people won't be thinking about this in a week's time. Perhaps some people in Paris who are very proud of their culture, to them it's a shame, it's sad, but to call it a tragedy when there are proper things going on in this world, there are problems facing the planet. We have an out of control global arms trade. We have various wars right now raging on. And if we're in the West, like if we're in the United States or we're in the UK, we're in Germany, France, it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget about these things. We just turn on our TVs and we go on the internet and we go on YouTube, and you can forget some of the really bad stuff that's going on in this world. And our governments are making these things happen. They're making these arms trades, these arms deals. They are starting wars. They are lying to us. They are manipulating us through propaganda, trying to get us to support these wars. And it goes on in all countries, most countries. But yeah, it's just quite interesting to see the way that the media has focused in on this fire. Really, if you look at it, it was some wooden beams that have set on fire. Nobody's died in it, although a fireman got injured, I believe, in trying to put out the fire. So hopefully he's doing okay. I do just want to add that a lot of churches have been set on fire in France this year, so it does seem like something's going on. I should just add that. It's an old building, yeah, like I said, it is 850 years old. But it makes me reflect on the bigger picture of the role of the mainstream media. They've got a lot of power. They decide what the news item is. They decide what we focus on. And sometimes I think we have a thing called censorship by omission, which means it's what they leave out, it's what they don't tell us about. Perhaps wars or just certain things. If they decide what the narrative is, they decide the ideas that we take in. The public, they decide on the, like I say, on the narrative. And if the news channels and the newspapers decide not to cover something, then it won't enter our mind really, unless we really, really dig deep, and most of us are too busy to do that. And yeah, I just think most people around the world are just busy with their everyday lives. Life can be hard. Getting through life, it can be challenging, can't it? People going to work, people going to school, universities, people are unemployed. A lot of countries in this world are very, very poor, and people are scraping by and are working very, very long hours. And nobody's really thinking, "Oh, this is such a tragedy for the world. This fire at Notre Dame." And what I will say, just to finish, is people who have been badly affected by the Catholic Church because they have had a real problem with child abuse and cover-ups. Instead of going to the police, they've moved these priests to different locations and they've tried to cover it up. And I know there's bad people in all walks of life, and I'm not making this a dig necessarily at religions, but people that have been badly affected by the things that have gone on in the Catholic Church, not just the abuse stuff but other stuff over the years, probably wouldn't be that upset either that this old building has set on fire. But of course, if it is arson, that's wrong. It's completely wrong. That's a criminal thing to set the building on fire. And I'd rather we did keep these old buildings, these historical buildings, obviously like the pyramids of Egypt, or I would rather that they were there. But you do wonder sometimes the huge amounts of money involved in replacing the wood and stuff. You do wonder sometimes about it all. But anyway, I've kind of waffled on enough, and I'd like to hear some of your thoughts below. If you've got an opinion on it, or if you're still listening to this and you've made it this far, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on the whole thing and the media, etc. And yeah, thanks for listening.